you know what Colonel Martinez told us? He says, we're not here to seize money. We're not here to seize dope. Our mission is to kill Pablo Escobar.
It was actually a war.
It was a war.
This is Inside the Life with Giovanni and Dutch, produced by the Mob Museum, presented by Levy Online and Levy Production Group. Giovanni, Rocco, and Dutch McAlpin are former police and federal task force operatives. They infiltrated drug cartels, outlaw motorcycle groups, and the mafia. Now, they share their stories, along with others who have gone inside the life.
Thank you, Dutch, Giovanni, and appreciate getting an invitation here to the Mob Museum, which if no one has been over, you got to come over. I mean, I've seen it. It's just amazing what they have here. The lectures they have, the people that are attending, and like I said, the artifacts that are on display. So, I mean, it's a great concept, and I'm glad they're keeping it alive, because, I've always said you need history.
Yeah,
and history's part of our lives,
right.
And you can relive it here, right?
Yeah, and this is a great platform for guys that have come out of doing these covert work. We don't ever get to talk about it. We don't ever get to maybe have a balanced, objective opinion of what we did. So this is a great place to do that.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
And some of the artifacts we'll get into later that you donated
will.
here, and and from your time with the cartels and throughout your career. But this is a great platform because, yes, I know Jav, I'm friends with you. I don't know all the intimate details of your life, but we've had conversations where I've gotten to know you as a friend and deeper than a law enforcement officer.
Right. It is.
So I think it's important to highlight your career and how you came to be long before the Netflix series made things famous and put you. You were a legend in our world, right?
Yeah.
And you really were in our world of law enforcement long before that. So.
Okay.
You got in Laredo, Texas. You were a law enforcement officer.
And I grew up in a little town called Hebronville, Texas, which is 5,000 population, right? And Laredo was our go-to town. I graduated high school 74 and went to college. It's now an A&M branch, but from there I applied, as a lot of us do, right? Students, you're working, you're trying to pay your college tuition. And there was an internship job at Texas Department of Corrections, the prison system. So I applied and wow, I got it. And I always remember, 18 years old. I was a sociology major, not even criminal justice, but I just needed the money. So I went up there, TDC, and they assigned me to the famous Ellis unit in Huntsville, which is the house death row. And the first day, there was no training, and I think they were messing with me. They said, hey, Peña, your first day of assignment, you're going to, watch the death row inmates, which death row inmates are. And, at this time, I remember they had the Candyman. I think his last name was O'Brien. He murdered his kids, gave them Halloween candy with cyanide, killed his kids to collect on the insurance. He was there. I remember there's a guy, Dominguez, who was part of the Fred Gomez Carrasco. They tried to break out of prison. They put the hostages in, remember the old blackboards?
Yes.
And I don't know how many people they killed. They ended up getting killed. There was one survivor. He was there. Anyway, long story short. So I'm walking up the catwalk, taking names. And one guy says, boo, man, I throw that clipboard. I run the hell out of there. That was my experience. But anyway, I did it there for about 3 months. And then Laredo, Webb County, they were hiring. It was a brand new sheriff, and I didn't even know him. So I applied. My grandparents lived in Laredo, so I got the job. And like everybody, started at the jail. And I'm very proud because, man, I learned a lot working in the jail, saw all the stabbings. One of our officers working in the jail got killed by an inmate. I mean, I saw a lot, learned a lot. And I was going to college at Laredo State, which is another A&M branch. And back in the day, there were no computers, so you would see the job postings. I don't know if some of y'all remember on the bulletin board when we were in college.
Right.
Oh,
and
yeah. Like
it was,
pinned up.
remember that? Yeah. And everybody would go up to the bulletin board just about graduating. And, I worked the night shift like a lot of us did, right? Went to school during the day. That was tough. Wow. But I was staying with my grandmother, so I had the home cooking. But then... it was DEA was hiring, and the yearly pay was 17,000. Right, 17,000. I was making like 9,000 at the sheriff's office. Man, I'm gonna double my salary.
Right.
Did you only work in the jail at the sheriff's office?
No. Later on, then afterwards, I got to go on patrol. Yep. So
and I kind of want to touch on that. I worked in a jail while I was going to college. I worked overnight shifts, and the only reason that's relevant to me is later working undercover and working in law enforcement, you had to learn how to talk your way out of really uncomfortable, violent scenarios in a jail.
Did.
You're in there with them,
was, working in the jail, like I said, was the best experience for me. And one of the things I always remember, and I tell a lot of people, you know what? I hated the feds. I hated DEA. I hated FBI. Because they would treat us like, you know what, no respect. They'd come in, open the damn door, kid. Well, come on. It's like, wow. And I've always swore, if I ever become a Fed, man, I'm not going to become one of those type of guys. Yeah. But it was a great experience. Dealt with 2 guys who had killed a police officer. I mean, these guys, I think they were both eventually killed in Huntsville with death penalty. But you got, like you said, you got to learn. You knew who the crooks were. You know how to talk to them. Because this guys were like the scum of the earth.
You can humanize them in a way too, though. You're talking to these
and you know
killers.
what? One of the best lessons I learned at Texas Department of Corrections at the prison system was from an inmate who always says they would call you boss. They said, "Boss, you just got to remember, we're inmates, but we're also human beings." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
That always you needed to strike that. You need to keep that in mind. You gotta have some, discipline. But you know what? We're human beings too,
And you have to find a way to balance, right? As an officer inside the jail, you're living in there. Pretty much, you're being forced to work doubles, right? Overtime is mandatory. It's not an easy thing.
No, it's not. But you learn a lot.
You do. You learn a lot about the human aspect of it, the de-escalation, the effective communication. That probably paid dividends when you started working undercover.
Yeah, and we had some small rights there at the jail. You had the guys who take other prisoners hostage. I mean, you learned a lot. I'm glad I did it. And then I went on to patrol. And Webb County is a big area. There weren't that many units back then. And, there was a lot of human smuggling back then. And I'm only going to briefly mention I had some girl problems, like about some of us. So,
we all have.
I wasn't married. I was dating. Something happened. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to try to leave Laredo. I needed to leave Laredo. And it was I laugh about it now, but back then,
it was time to leave Laredo.
Time to leave Laredo.
So
that's why, and you know what? When DEA, and with me was all accident. I said I had to ask what DEA was. I did not know it was. My buddy says, "Stupid, those are the federal narcs." Oh, okay. I didn't know what DEA. What do they do?
I just need to get out of
Laredo.
Laredo.
So with me, it was all a mistake, right? So I applied, and I got accepted. And they said, "Hey, went to the academy. I went to Glencoe, Georgia. Our academy now is in Quantico in D.C. in Virginia, but I was assigned. We still had our academies. It was B830, Basic Agent School number 30, and it was in Glencoe, Georgia. And you know what? That was a tough training. It was rigorous. The physical part, the mental part. And I don't know if y'all remember, like when you went through your academy, they would scare you. Like you flunked 2 tests.
Oh yeah,
you are gone.
Sure. Yeah.
And man,
Glencoe wasn't easy. That's in Brunswick, Georgia. That's in the south, the swampy area, and hot as hell.
It was hot. They, like I said, running in the afternoon, at nighttime, and like I said, all the practical exercises. And I was in the drug guy, because I was a patrolman.
Right.
And it's very different when you're working dope and, the conspiracies.
Right.
A lot of laws. Wow. And you know what? Some guys would just, they'd go out drinking. I'd stay in and study, man, because, I wasn't part of that know-it-all.
The test didn't come easy.
Yeah, test didn't come easy. I never flunked one. And so I passed everything. It's at the academy where they tell you your assignment. Nowadays, I think DEA tells you right off the bat where you're going. So they said, hey, Peña, you got selected and you're going to Austin, Texas. And I was like, is there a mistake? Austin, Texas? Because I had put in my wish list. I wanted to go to Miami, LA, New York, get
all
the big offices out of the way,
Trying to
right?
get out of Laredo.
Yeah, exactly. So they sent me to Austin, Texas in 1984. And you know what? I loved it there because it was the start of the music industry.
Right.
In Austin, Texas. George Strait was playing, Sleep at the Wheel. I mean, all those bands. It was just a great time. You know, of course, I'm single, so I'm running all over the place. And I got taken in by the Austin Police narcotics unit. Famous sergeant, and I'm going to mention that because he ended up going to prison later on. But he was well known. And he took me under his wing, taught me a lot about the dope business, the conspiracies, the undercover. I learned a lot from him, one of my mentors. And I'm Hispanic, so I did a lot of undercover work back then. So they were using me all over the place, and I learned. But it was smaller. We were dealing with ounce people. What I'm saying, ounce, it was a lot of black tar heroin, the 2-3 ounces of black tar, which was big.
Right.
In Austin was the meth capital of the world. They called meth crank. It was the old cooking method.
Yeah, the
P2P, phenol 2.
P2P,
I always remember phenol 2, propanone.
Because otherwise we'll lose these guys. But they're talking about the meth lab days when instead of, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but instead of the Mexican cartels bringing in crystal meth, they were making crank. They were taking precursors, pseudoephedrine, anhydrous ammonia, P2P, or red phosphorus, and they're cooking up their own dope, right? And it's kind of that's a shady scene.
Shady.
I couldn't have explained it better.
Just the smell.
I remember the phenol 2 propanone, and I remember that everybody needed Reynolds wrap. I'm glad you know all those chemicals. Wow, you're and you know what? You were right on the money. You know, all those and they were easy to get. And I remember I developed an informant at a chemical warehouse. Wow, and this guy was dynamite. He'd give us information. Hey, Javier, come in, set up. We're selling because P2P was legal at this time. We're selling 2 barrels, 55-gallon, barrels of P2P. We're selling all this other ammonium hydride, for the labs. So we would follow them, and they take us to the lab or they take us to the storage unit. So we're doing a lot of arrests this way. And I say one of my best arrests, and I always, was I'm in a supermarket shopping, and this guy comes in smelling of P2P, right? And he's like 100 miles an hour, and he's buying like 10 packages of foil wrap because they used it part of the cooking was to put in the aluminum.
The aluminum foil, they'd put it in muriatic acid.
Exactly. So I followed him, and we got a meth lab. Another crazy example was also in Austin, Texas. I'm at a little convenience store, right? And there's a guy, it's an Hispanic guy, comes in, and he is getting pissed at the clerk because he wanted small balloons, and they had just this big balloons, and I can't, and he's sniffing and just really, really mad at the girl. Says, I know you have them, small balloons. The girl like, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. Balloons, you blow up balloons. And he was like really mad. And, I said, man, this guy's up to no good. So I followed him in my personal car, followed him to a hotel. And they were packaging the black tar heroin in balloons, for streets,
like a bindle bag almost.
Yeah, exactly. So we called the cops. We busted him, but just because the guy was just pissed off because they did not have small balloons.
So you were committed. I mean, early in your career, you were drawn to the drug industry, right? And as far as investigations go.
Right. And I was working Saturdays, Sundays, 2, 3 in the morning. And I learned a little bit about undercover because I never did undercover. I mean, as a cop, we don't do undercover, right?
Right.
And there was no really, they teach you something at the academy, but it's not really the same until you experience it in real life, right? And one of my first ones was I was in Laredo and getting ready to go to the academy, not even been to the academy yet. And they said, well, you're a DEA agent. Come on with us. We're going to Laredo, to Mexico. You know what? There was no cable, no.
Just across the border?
Just coming over with us. There's a guy who was an informant. They set up, and I always remember, I feel bad. It was an old man and he delivered like a pound of black tar, with the informant. Mex feds came in, they busted the old man. It was like, that was my first, but that was an easy one. But the one I learned, I was doing a lot, but the one that sticks in my mind is where I almost got killed. And the same thing, Friday afternoon, what happens? Nobody wants to go work, right?
Yep.
And everybody's mad at me because I said, hey, guys, my informant called. There's a guy who's got like a kilo of black tar. And it was like 5 o'clock on a Friday. Man, all these
Isn't that always
come
the
on
case?
up here. Oh, man.
Everybody's sick all of a sudden.
Yeah, everybody was. So I just told everybody, guys, it'll be a quick deal. We go in, come out, the arrest signal, everybody goes in. And, no one's paying attention, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Deals. So I go into the room. I remember there was and this Hispanic guy opens the door and he puts a gun to my head and pushes me inside the room, and I'm like, oh, man. And the first thing he said was, if you're a cop or something goes wrong, you're the first one that I'm going to shoot, and I'm going to blow your head off. And he was kind of upset, reading me the riot act. And you know what I tell, to be honest, and I remember the first thing that came to my mind, I wanted to do a timeout. I'm not a real crook, buddy. Let's shake hands.
I'm just going to leave.
Yeah, you go and I go home. Nothing
Can we do
happens.
this scene over?
Right? I'm just an actor here, buddy. I'm not a real crook.
Right.
But then, you know what? Your meanness starts coming in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that
it becomes very
sense.
personal.
Yeah, then I was just like, hey, I lost it with a guy. I said, what, blah, blah, blah. And this is all in Spanish. And you know what I think saved my life that day? And I'm going to mention it, is my boyhood experiences in Laredo.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Real quick, I'm 50 miles from the border growing up, high school. What do high school kids go to Laredo for? You buy beer, right? The beer was cheap. I remember Corona. A case of Corona was $3 a case. Because nobody drank Corona back then. It was a skunk beer.
Yeah.
Now with all the advertisement, but so I knew the bars. I knew, friends, and I knew some of the city bars in Laredo. I think some of us know what I'm talking about, right? Because we're high school kids, So I tell those guys, I can't be a cop, man. I ask at this bar, they know me by name, and the guy was like, this guy's not a cop. He's going to all
the places we go.
Yeah, you named off the places
Yeah, I
that you know
named
about.
all the bars I'd go to. I said, ask anybody. Oh, man, he hugged me, put the gun down, and obviously then I got the jump on him, and I arrested him.
And it's amazing, right?
The guys finally came in. I was trying to give the arrest signal. Nobody came in. You know how it is.
Yeah,
I do, and I want to touch on that because a lot of people don't realize what you said about being Friday at 5 o'clock. We've all been in that position, right?
Wow.
And again, even Team America, as we call them, the agents, they always say, really, Hav? Really, Dutch? 5 o'clock on a Friday? Yeah. This guy better have the dope. If we do this, you got to guarantee. So now the pressure's on for you to produce as an undercover. You feel bad. You start to feel bad that you're keeping everybody away from your family. It's late Friday night.
Exactly. And then another one I'll always remember, and this one I'll never forget also, December 24th. December 24th, at about 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody's trying to go home. And the informant calls me and says, Javier, remember you ordered up a kilo of Coke? And we had already made a couple of buys from this guy. 2 ounces at a time. We walked it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We walked a couple of ounces. So we were, and then...
Let me cover that real quick because I already know where this is going to go. Walking it is when you make a buy and you actually let them take the money and leave. And you're collecting evidence for prosecution. So you let 2 walk.
Yeah,
you're in good standing.
2 walk, right. Yeah, letting the dope, letting the money go, basically. And I think it was like 2,000, each for an ounce of Coke or something like that. And we had identified another guy. But anyway, so my deal, and obviously, our principle of undercover is try to reach the highest level. Mm-hmm. We bought 2 ounces, so they knew we weren't cops because cops weren't buying,
Oh, yeah, for sure. They didn't have the budget for it.
Yeah, so anyway, the guys call me 24th. He says, hey, they got the kilo you've been wanting. If you don't buy it, there's already other buyers lined up. So, man, it says, boss, there's a little problem. And our stats were down at the office at this, I remember. And the boss told the group, you know what? Hey, our stats are down. I don't care. It's the 24th. Everybody else was pissed at me.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Everybody else was pissed because everybody wants to go home on Christmas Eve. Yeah. And I'll never forget. So we went up there. Wow. He had the kilo. It was an Hispanic guy. And I saw a car deliver it. And the surveillance saw it too. It was in a shoebox. Okay. And the car took off. I mean, we got the license plate. We didn't want to burn the deal. And we lost the guy, the source who delivered the kilo, but the guy who gave me the box containing a kilo of cocaine, we arrested him. And it was at an apartment complex. And, people started, we had the arrest team, we had the people out there. So all the apartment people were coming out. And his wife and 3 kids come out. Oh, man. I just like the kids, little kids, Christmas Eve, crying. The wife is crying. I mean, the kids are hugging the mom, and they're trying to, hug the dad. Mm-hmm. And I remember they're all 3 kids, about 2, 3, and 4 years old. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Christmas Eve. Oh, wow.
It's traumatic, right?
It is.
On us, it is. People don't think we take that to heart.
No, let me tell you what I did. And I think, anyway, so I, patted him down. And I took out a wad. He had I counted the money. It was like $4,000. It was all dope money.
Right.
It was all dope money. I should have seized it. I was by myself at this time. And I remember the crook, the bad guy, says, sir, man, it's Christmas Eve, man. My kids, my wife, it's dope money. He says, it's dope money, but that's all they have.
Right.
I need a favor, but he says, can I give it to them? And you know what? DEA would have said, of course, hell no.
Good for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I took the money and I hid it from everybody. I didn't tell anybody in the group. And I went to the wife, to interview her, and I slipped her the money, and she just cried.
Good for you.
You know what I'm saying?
Good for you.
You know what? It's the kids. They're going to eat something, buy them gifts. It's dope money. It's Christmas. I mean, but I would have done it even if it wasn't.
And you didn't break any laws or anything like that.
I know that money,
circumvented it wouldn't have mattered in the DEA.
Exactly. So I told people now, but I never told anyone until I retired later.
That's great. I'm glad you brought that up.
I know. And you know what? That's why we have discretion.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
People right now, you need that common sense, and people sometimes don't have that common sense.
And we realize people make bad choices and they go into things for whatever reason they're committing crime.
Exactly. And you know what? There's always a respect with crooks. I remember the older crooks, when you'd bust them, it was like, hey, no hard feelings,
right.
But then the younger crooks, they all want to shoot. But anyway, the guy always, and he pled guilty. The guy always, and you know what? The guy who delivered the dope in that car, we arrested him, and he was an active parole officer for Texas.
Really?
An active parole officer. It was his brother. He didn't plead. We went to trial, and you know what? We had a great AUSA, an attorney, prosecutor, and the prosecutor, because the guy says, no, I was delivering shoes to my son, and yes, the prosecutor asked, well, how old is your son? Oh no, he's 6 years old. Oh, so he wears a size 12? Yeah. With a box head. Oh, man, the jury just guilty. And the guy later on, he confessed. He said he had a problem, and he would run all this people on his, on his watch. So anyway, turned out good, but undercover. And I was kind of not rogue, but I was doing a lot of stuff that could have gotten me in trouble, but I had a good boss. Mm-hmm. And I remember, getting in a fight at a bar once with I had a Austin PD officer working with me side by side. We were partners, and again, it was just me and him, and not even working. We're at a bar partying, and this guy's offering some dope. So, I had $100. I bought a gram of, I think it was coke. I didn't tell anyone. So later on, I said, "Boss, I think I screwed up. What'd you do, Javier?" I said, you used my money. All right. And you know what? We opened the case. Yeah, and put the paperwork in, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
no, I do.
That's the way.
Sometimes when you're working undercover, it's hard to come out of
Yeah,
undercover.
It is. And you know what? In our undercovers, I mean, obviously, are organized, but sometimes shit happens. You're out there sometimes, right?
And you have to have that bit of an edge, right?
Yeah.
You have to have that cowboy way about you. And a lot of people don't understand that, especially executive branch. They don't get it. They just think we're rogue agents or,
exactly.
They'll brand us, right?
Right. And that's why I had a great boss. And you know what? He once said, "Javier, you're leading the office in stats and cases. You're buttering my bread, so I'm going to protect you."
What you're doing. Keep doing it, right?
I used to, like, you're talking about the shit happens and things happen. We have this plan. We've had this briefing. It's going to go down. It's going to take this long. It's going to take this fast. I need this much money. And I used to tell my supervisor, I'm like, I need extra money. He's like, what do you mean you need extra money? It's only $4,000. I'm like, yeah, but what if he has a machine gun?
Right.
You want me to buy it while I'm there? You know what I mean? If I might change the plan, but it seemed like those funny things would happen.
Right. Yeah, I just showed
Someone
up
would
here.
show up with something you didn't even like.
Exactly. You never know. And I don't know. I mean, we try to go by plan, right? The ops plan, the briefing, we try to do it. But sometimes shit's going to happen, and you got to react, or you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Or you're going
buy
to
a
get
gram
other
of
people
Coke
hurt.
at the bar.
Yeah.
But again, it's a lot of money invested on us, right? It's a lot of money invested in the case.
And it's stuff I did not know. Like, another time undercover, the guy says, "Give me your address, because I'm going to send you a little sample of what the product I'm selling." And I'm like, wow, what do I do now? Address. And I did not know we had an undercover address at the office. No one, you know what I'm saying, and stuff. I didn't know that. So I lived in an apartment, so I gave my apartment address.
Your actual real one?
Yeah, my real address. I didn't know better, man.
Yeah.
I was living by myself. I could always move it. You know what? In a couple of weeks, I had a FedEx package, and he sent me, it was a couple of grams of Coke, because he was, I told my boss. I was good at writing memos to clarify, but I did a lot of memos at this time. So I wrote it up. I said, "Hey, boss, I made another," but they were always like, "Hey, all right, just don't do it again. We have an undercover." I didn't know that. No one
Listen, in that world, we're trying to live in both worlds. So a lot of times I'll ask for forgiveness,
Yeah.
That's all.
And you know what? I've always, in my career, I never crossed that line.
No.
Yeah.
Which is, that's the big thing in our careers. There's opportunities, of course. Yeah. There's money, there's all sorts of things that, no one's looking. If you had a little, you crossed that line, and I always remember at a search warrant, I don't know, I think it's like 100,000. We're all tired, hungry, thirsty, and one of the officers told his supervising officer, "Hey, boss, man, we've been at this search warrant all day, counting money. It's like 150,000. Why don't we just take this $20, buy pizzas for everybody to come in?" And you know what? The supervisor was like reading the riot act. Once you take that 20, that's it's over.
Once you chip that integrity, that stone, you're done.
Right.
This could be kind of a good time of transition. And it's funny that it's common. Every time we're interviewing undercovers, it comes up that there are dirty police officers, there are corrupt law enforcement officers. And as an undercover, we have to learn how to identify them. And I always felt, if you don't have integrity with this money and with this drugs and with this information, you don't have integrity with my life, and I don't want you around me.
And
I only want good guys around me.
Yeah. And that's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. But
kind of brings us to
people
Kiki.
need to learn. Yeah. And in Austin, Texas, I came on in 1984, and I think I had like 6 months on the job when I get a call from our boss. From Joe Toft, great boss, and he says, "Javier, we think we got one of our agents missing," and no one really knew what was going on, but he hadn't reported to the house in Mexico. He'd been missing for about a day. It was the start of our agent Kiki Camarena's, his abduction, his torture, and ultimately his death. And my boss says, Javier, I know you're brand new out of the academy, but we need Spanish speakers. You need to go to help with the search, and we need agents. And he says, get on a plane. I said, boss, I don't even have a passport. Well, just get to the airport, take your driver's license. And I was able, to go to, I landed in Mexico City with a driver's license, brand new, and nobody was there to pick me up. And I didn't know anything about Mexico.
That sounds terrifying, actually.
You
got a missing, kidnapped agent.
You're
exactly,
there and here
ID.
by myself. So
you
I
have
got this hotel right next to the airport. I called the embassy, and finally they said, oh, man, yeah. So they picked me up, and then they sent me to Mazatlan, which is where the crux of the problem was at, that Guadalajara area, where he had been kidnapped. And you know what? I mean, I saw a lot. I learned a lot. They teamed me up. We're about 10 guys. I was the youngest guy. And my senior agent was a great guy. His name was John Brown, who later on became the acting administrator for DEA. And he took me under his wings. And it was on a daily basis. We already knew that the bad guy who had killed Agent Camarena was Rafael Caro Quintero. So that was his base, the area we were at in Mazatlan, that Guadalajara area. And we'd go out to the mountains searching, I never got to see him. And as soon as I leave Mazatlan, my agent is involved in they see Caro Quintero, he's getting on a plane. And Caro Quintero shows him a machine gun. The plane takes off. He was eventually arrested, but I was there 2 months in the search. But what I vividly remember is, he had been kidnapped because he was working on, and there was some big marijuana fields that belonged to these people. And he was right on them. He knew exactly what was going on, so they kidnapped him. And what I remember, it was just one of those painful, you just did not even want to hear about it, the way they did to our agent. They tortured him.
Right.
And then they kept pumping him full of adrenaline to keep him alive so they could torture him some more. And they did all sorts of things, brutal things to our agent when he finally died. And I remember at the beginning, we could not find the body. And you know what? And it was President Reagan, you know what he did? He closed the border between Mexico and the United States. He closed it for about 40 minutes. And the chaos that created. Because he says, hey, Mexico, if you're not cooperating with us, and he closed the border. And as soon as he closed it, I think it was within 20 minutes, the Mexican says, they say, oh, we found the body.
Right.
Wow, come on. Yeah, they knew. So they turned over the body, which is what we wanted. And I remember we actually, our agents, I wasn't involved in it, but I think they kidnapped the doctor back to the United States who kept pulling him with adrenaline, kept giving him adrenaline to keep him alive. Courts in LA, they rescinded that and sent him back to Mexico. But it was just a trying time, and it's really the first time for DEA that we've had agents killed, but the way they killed Agent Camarena was just so barbaric as far as
set a different message,
kidnapping him, torturing him, and then they had cassette tapes. When they would torture him, they were recording everything, like who's involved, who are the other agents. We got a hold of those tapes.
They wanted to scare you guys out, basically?
They wanted to send a message, basically, because no one knew at this time, nothing like this had ever been done with DEA, kidnapping and killing. I mean, there'd been killings, but in undercover situations, shootouts, search
normal
warrants.
stuff. This was very personal.
This
and
was abnormal, because he was a great agent. No names will be mentioned, but one of the top bosses in Mexico, his attitude was, I'll give him a couple of days. He's out drinking with someone or with some women, and he's just on a drunken binge. Oh, that
They were precious moments, right?
A lot of agents.
Those that knew him knew he was disciplined.
I know the person, and in my book, I will never respect him.
Right.
And that person, what I remember, took the train down to Guadalajara when all this was happening. The pleasure train. A pleasure train
really?
To
instead of flying down and getting to work.
Flying and that took his time.
I'm going to see the countryside. I'm going to take a nice vacation.
Take my wife. Like, wow, can you imagine one of our agents has been kidnapped, tortured, and you're taking a train?
Right.
That to me, like I said, no names will be mentioned, but I'll never respect that person. Anyway, moving forward, obviously we ended up finding the body. We ended up arresting, we arrested, I don't know, about 15. There was another famous trafficker, Jose Ramon Mata Ballesteros, who was partners, and he was an Honduran. He was from Honduras. We arrested him, but the main culprit was Rafael Caro Quintero. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It's an injustice. Caro Quintero did a little prison time, then some judge released him on a bribe. He bribed the judge. He was, like I said, living freely. He was arrested around 2000, and he's still awaiting extradition. He's still in Mexico.
I was going to say, we're never extradited.
The problem is, he's living the life of luxury in Mexico. Right. They can do whatever they want. And you know what? When working the Pablo Escobar, the Medellín Cartel organization, his calling card, when he would drop car bombs during his reign of terrorism on Colombia, he had a leaflet called The Extraditables, and the heading was, I prefer a tomb in Colombia than a jail cell in the United States.
Really?
So what does that mean? All these traffickers all over the world, what's the only thing they fear?
Coming to the United States to prison.
Coming to a real jail cell in the United States, because we've seen it. We've seen the Caro Quinteros. We've seen the Chapo situation in Mexico. They're in prison. It's not a prison. They're doing whatever they want to do.
Chapo's here because they decided to give him to us, right?
There's
always
there's politics, but Rafael Caro Quintero still in Mexico and still has now been brought to pay justice for the agent of Kiki Camarena. That's a tragic.
Yeah. Now that lit the fire in your belly, and was that the passion that you had going after the narco terrorists going forward?
Yes, and that's why after my tour, I did 4 years in Austin, Texas, and you had to do 4 years, and then you could apply. They just don't send you to go foreign. Mm-hmm. You got to volunteer. And I put in, I remember, for Mexico, because I wanted to go back to Mexico. And I'll always remember my boss coming in and says, Javier, did you put in for Colombia? I said, no, sir. Well, you got selected to go to Colombia. And you know what? And he told me, he says, Javier, if you want to fight it, you didn't put in for it. It was a mistake. So I said, boss, I'll go to Colombia. Let me just go see the map where it is. I didn't even know where it is, And at that time, my big boss, I was in Austin. My big boss was in San Antonio, Joe Talk. It just so happened, coincidence, that he got selected to go down to Colombia as a country attaché.
Okay.
Wow. So I was he was my boss in San Antonio. So I was in Austin under him. So we ended up pretty much arriving at the same time. And he knew me. I was a worker, and he changed the culture of the Colombia office. They got rid of a lot of people who weren't doing their jobs. Mm-hmm. They brought in some young, energetic, and really, and I'll always remember when I first get to Colombia, as far as visiting, going out to the cops, doing some liaison, the attitude at the embassy was, don't go out there. They're all dirty. Oh. You know what I'm saying? So let's just stay home.
Just stay home, swim in the pool,
money,
relax.
Take the train down to Mexico.
Take the train down to Mexico. So all of a sudden, I said, you know what? I started going, visiting them. It was the detective unit that was working narcotics, and they were standoffish. I always remember, and I couldn't understand. So I started showing an interest, going every day, and then all of a sudden they started, well, here's some information. You want it for Miami? Of course. It was a gold mine of intelligence. I remember New York, Miami, traffickers, they were doing the wiretaps in Colombia, and at this time, traffickers would try to use codes. Like, yeah, we're going to go to La Playa. We're going to go to the beach, Miami. We're going to the towers, New York. You know what I'm saying? It was basic codes. It said whitehead or whitehead cattle or darkhead cattle, heroin code. I mean, it was like simple codes. And man, and I remember I just started writing teletypes. You remember the teletypes?
Oh, yeah. They all came out.
Yeah. 10 to 15 on a daily basis. And it was just great intelligence.
Kind of like an email before an email in a way, right?
You know what? It
would like print out on a sheet.
A teletype is basically an email putting down intelligence information so somebody can act on it. And you could not use, the only caveat is you could not use the teletype as probable cause. And then what I also did is started giving our counterparts feedback. Hey, this guy in Miami is calling this numbers in Bogota. And you know what the cops told me? He says, Javier, he said, you know what? We were tired of DEA because it was always a one-way street. We never get anything back. From y'all. We give and give, nothing. So then I started just, hey, guys, look at this information here in Bogota, in Medellín. And then I just started, you know what I would do is give them attaboy letters.
Yeah.
Wow, they loved it because that went to the head general. And it was basically because of this information that came from this office, we seized 100 keys in Miami. They love those letters.
Of course, it's a U.S. document.
And it was just common sense, right?
Yeah.
Common sense. You know, it's a two-way street, but they hated DA because we never get anything back. It's a one-way street, and we just started. So we started changing the culture, and then I remember they would call me on weekends. So, yeah, man, you ain't going to believe what we got on this wiretap. Come on over. So I drive over to their office. They let me listen to the wiretap. I do my cable.
Do my cable is
the same thing as a teletype.
Teletype.
As an email now.
Early day emails.
I like that.
Early day emails.
Yeah. But it was just coordinates. They would send coordinates to Mexico for the loads. Miami, they would send, all right, this guy's going to pick up the load. I had one where they actually on the phone explained where the dope was on an airplane.
Really?
Like under a seat, the seat number. It was just, they
had nothing to hide, basically. No one was doing anything with the information until you came along.
And then the financial information, all the accounts we were getting. So we started turning the tide. And that's when in Bogota, my boss says, Javier, you're going to work the Pablo Escobar investigation. And I really didn't know who Pablo Escobar was. So he was getting known, but this is in 1988. And they assigned the senior agents. However, her problem was she had fallen in love with a guy from the embassy.
Oh, boy.
And no names will be mentioned. So she was starting to, trying to make wedding, get married and not. And
distracted.
Hey, Javier, you go by yourself and stay a couple of days. And so I started pretty much taking over. And like I said, she great agent, but you know what? She fell in love and she was trying to leave Colombia, go get married with a guy from the embassy. So then I started making all our contacts in Medellín, and the search was going on for Pablo, but we were only there. I would only do there like one night, 2 nights, because it was so dangerous back in the beginning. And Pablo's name was coming up now. His name was getting out there. Pablo was starting to take a more active role in the terrorism. And what I mean by the terrorism is that he was orchestrating, he was ordering, I call them the famous car bombs. You know, when he started fighting Colombia, and the whole fight on Colombia was because of extradition. A lot of people do not realize that
extradition to the United States for prosecution.
To the United States for prosecution, yes. And that was his fight. And it was basically, also the Sicarios, the assassins. I mean, we never seen in the States a trafficker who had, 500 assassins working for him. And I guess, you all worked the mafia cases. It was sort of, right? Mafia?
Yeah, they're very much like, the Colombian cases I worked, with the cartels in the 90s when I came on. Yeah, very much so.
Right,
yeah, same thing.
The cartels and Mexican
hitmen,
cartels.
Yeah, same structure.
You see, like I said, I did not know what a Sicario was. I learned real quick. And I remember the cops that were going after Pablo Escobar was a great colonel, Colonel Hugo Martinez Poveda, a real hero. You know what? And the fight against Pablo Escobar was based on revenge.
I want to take you back to Sicario real quick,
right?
Because a Colombian Sicario, like, I want you to tell them, like, I know the ones I've come across, like, you could almost recognize them.
Yeah,
they were very stone cold. They were
right.
purpose driven. You knew they were killers.
And that's a great point. The Sicarios, and remember, we're from the States. I didn't know what a Sicario was. Sicario was an assassin. The first time I dealt with one, and it was, I had to arrest him in Colombia. Do I have jurisdiction? Of course not. No jurisdiction. But my informant only wanted to give me the information. And she called me, and I told the cops, guys, what do y'all want to do? It's a Saturday night. This guy's at a disco, and I remember, and we were short. We didn't have too many cops. I think we only had like 5 guys. So, and the colonel wasn't there. So the captain says, Javier, you're going to have to get involved. All right. So I met the informant. She was at a discotheque at a bar. The cops were in the area, inside the bar, and she pointed him out. And, blah, blah, blah. And she took it. She sort of said, come with me. We're going to dance. And I don't know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so I ended up arresting the guy. Pulled out the gun. He tried to pull out his gun. We fought. My backup came in. They subdued the guy. We arrested him. And he was a known Sicario, a violent Sicario, well known in the Sicario world.
Really?
So anyway, we take him back to the base. And turns out the guy says, all right, I'm gonna confess. And it's a confession that I'll never forget. He was 15 years old. He says, I love Pablo. He says, I will die and I will kill for him. He said, me and my mother were living in a cardboard box on a road in Medellín. Pablo saw us. He stopped, talked to us. He bought us a house, gave us money. And the young thug told me that he started working for Pablo. And he says, you know what? I will die and I will kill for Pablo Escobar. Mm-hmm. He said, I'll be dead by 22, 23 years old. But he saved my mother and myself. So now my life belongs to him. I will kill, I will die. He says, by the way, he says, when Pablo Escobar started the war in Colombia, he put bounties on police officers, $100 a head. Can you imagine? $100. And this young thug confessed to me that he had already killed 10 police officers. And he was a nonchalant, like nothing, I just go walk behind. When they're in patrolling, they're walking their beat here in Medellin. I have my gun. I hide it. I go up behind their backs where they're not seeing them. I shoot in the back of the head.
Right.
I go collect $100. That was that attitude. And he says, as long as my mother has money, he said, and whatever's left over, he says, pair of jeans, tennis shoes, and some beer. I'm happy.
Right.
But I'll be dead.
And that's what Pablo, his way about him was that political side of him, right?
Yeah.
The manipulation.
Right. And if you got 500 of this young thugs working for you,
you got an army.
That's an army, right?
And they're so loyal.
And everybody wants to die for him. They'll kill
Robin Hood.
whatever.
He had the Robin Hood persona.
Right,
he portrayed himself as.
Yeah, portrayed as Robin Hood, but like again, he was no Robin Hood.
No.
We always say, he needed people, so he'd go to the Sicario base. And I met a lot of them. I saw a lot of them, and it was just. And when we talk about arresting Sicarios, most of them were going to shoot it out with y'all. Mm-hmm. They never take me. It was always a shootout. And the Sicarios, Pablo Escobar was, because I got asked the question, was he ever involved in any killings himself? Yes. A lot of information was he was there when they killed a friend of mine, a captain, who was working in Medellin. They had their safe house, right? Mm-hmm. Him and about 5 other officers. Sicarios went in, blew the door down, and Pablo was there, and supposedly Pablo killed the captain. So That's why the war on Pablo Escobar in Colombia was based on revenge.
Right.
You know what? Colonel Martinez told us, he says, we're not here to seize money. We're not here to seize dope. Our mission is to kill Pablo Escobar.
It was actually a war.
It was a war. Yeah. Why? Because all the police officers killed, and then the innocent people he killed. You know what? We had put the figure at about 10 to 15,000 innocent people that Pablo killed. And one of his remaining Sicarios, a guy by the name of Popeye, and he was all over social media. In social media, Popeye, John Jairo Velasquez Vasquez is his name, claimed that it was closer to 50,000 people. 50,000 people that Escobar killed. And if you put, like I said, the car bombs on a daily basis, 10 to 15, the downing, putting a bomb on an airplane, commercial airline, Avianca Airlines, it's 2 U.S. citizens on board. That Sicario, and you know where he was arrested, right? The guy who planted the bomb on that airline?
Where?
In New York City.
Oh, really?
He was arrested in New York City. Then Denny Munoz Mosquera, and he's the one, basically what Pablo told him, put a briefcase, and there was a bomb in the briefcase. But they had another unwitting Sicario go on board, and they told him it was a recording device. Right. He says, flip the switch. You're going to record the guy on your right. Engage him in conversation. So when the guy flips the switch, it was a bomb. Not knowing. So 107 innocent people were killed.
Well, as fast as Pablo was recruiting Sicarios and building loyalty, he was also destroying.
Yeah, he didn't care. Yeah,
but I mean, he built another army against him at the same time.
Exactly. And like I said, then the work we did on, said DEA New York did a great job, but we identified the Sicario being in New York, and he called his mom in Medellín. We already knew we did not know where he was, but the mom was not home. So he gives the number. It was a 212 number.
Oh, really? New York City.
Payphone.
Yeah.
Payphone in New York City. And he says, have her call me tomorrow night. He even told us the time, 8 o'clock.
Really?
There are like 200 agents taking out the phone. So the guy answers the phone. It's a funny, sort of a funny story. The guy lies about his age, about his identity, gives a false name. So he gets arrested for what? 1001. Lied to a federal agent. Great judge in New York City sentenced him to 5 years. Yeah. And that's when DEA does investigation, they're able to pin the bomb on him. Right. So he's serving a couple of life sentences.
But now on a stateside, you have teams of guys running around doing their thing, right? And you had multiple, just a ton of agents running around at that time. Right. But here you are down in Colombia. Right. How big is your team? How many guys do you have going out with you?
Well, in DEA was only in Steve, my partner, Steve Murphy. But at the beginning, it's only being by myself. I get there in 88. Steve comes in 91. Right. We had a small task force. It was maybe about 15 detectives type. Like undercover, plainclothes. Our uniform side of the house was about 500, but that's the uniform side to go do raids at the ranches, at businesses. But the undercover guys, the intelligence guys, were only about 15, and like I said, their leader was Colonel Hugo Martinez. But you know what we did in the States, and I'm not sure who came up with the concept, and I think you're going to remember the old TKO days?
Yes.
The Kingpin days in Miami, New York. It was going after the targeted Kingpin operator. And it's basically a TKO was the biggest and baddest trafficker out there of the world.
It was almost like a Kingpin statute for the federal.
Yes.
Yeah. Once you had that beat on you, you were done.
Right. And that concept, wow, we need to do more of it today. And I know y'all been involved.
Starting to make an impact.
Yeah. Where you take off people in the States, people in Colombia that are both working for Pablo Escobar, that's going to make a difference. I remember the financial, the money launderers. New York was a haven for the Cali cartel. Right. Whereas Miami was Pablo. And the fight between Cali cartel and Pablo and the Medellín cartel was based over turf wars, because Pablo was trying to take over the New York markets. And that was Cali based. And I know a lot of DEA New York guys work with the Cali cartel in New York,
a ton of them. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of seizures. But the basic concept is take them off in the United States, take them off in Colombia, and it's going to hurt.
Right.
And go after the money. Remember, we're seizing a lot of bank accounts. DEA, we had a great financial guru at DEA headquarters who was years ahead of the game as far as, hey guys, let's identify the accounts, let's seize them, and it was great. So we were dismantling the Medellín Cartel from top to bottom, which sometimes we just go after one or two guys, right?
Right.
Hey, the rest are, but this time we went after everybody, and that's what helped. So it was a worldwide effort by all the offices, and it was working. But if you go back to Pablo Escobar, I mean, he was ruthless. We used to intercept him. There's a great call where he's talking to his wife, and the guy yells. They're torturing a guy. So he covers the phone, and he turns around and says, cover his mouth, and continues talking to his wife how much he loves her.
Right?
Like nothing. I mean, that's that cold-heartedness. And that's why, you know what? He was responsible for 80% of the cocaine that was reaching the world. Billions of dollars in cash. But again, once we started attacking everything, the financial markets, the sell heads, the distributors, the guys who were buying the airplanes, and that was big business in Colombia.
3 years after you got there, Steve Murphy comes on to ground, and you meet him, and you're introduced. What was your impression of Steve?
I did not know Steve, and slowly, as in any partners, when you first get assigned to a partner, y'all are kind of hesitant with each other, right?
Yeah.
Should I tell him this? Should I? We do things a little different here. So, and then once we got together, he was just like me. He was like, let's get the job done.
Yeah.
And you know what? And like we said, we broke policies.
Yep.
We broke rules, but we never broke the law.
Right. Mission driven. Yeah.
Mission driven.
But your boots on the ground. I'm
we're
going to
on the
paint this
ground.
picture again.
We're there.
Your boots on the ground in Colombia.
Right.
Pablo Escobar is, right, the devil himself. But Pablo, here's the thing. Pablo knows who Javier Peña is.
Yes.
He knows your name.
Well, he tried to send his family to Miami, of all places. What? Miami?
Right.
And I was at the airport in Medellín, and I said his wife, his mother, 2 kids, boarding a flight going to Miami. And I'm like, what is going on? So I call the ambassador, and the ambassador tells me, you ripped the visas from their passports. Knowing my knowledge of passports, you can review it, but you cannot tear any page out of a passport. So the ambassador ordered me. So I talked to the wife. The kids were crying, the mother, and the ambassador told me to tell them if they want a visa, tell them to come to the embassy.
Nice.
Of course they did.
Were you guys looking for Pablo at the time? Or
Yes,
something?
we were looking for him. So he was trying to get the family out. And it goes back to, there's a group called Los Pepes.
Right.
And they accused me of being a member of a right-wing death hit squad, Los Pepes, that I was out there killing people. Los Pepes were made up of a group of traffickers who worked for Moncada and Galliano. Moncada and Galliano were lieutenants for Pablo. Pablo thought they were stealing money, so Pablo had them killed.
Mm-hmm.
So these traffickers all got together, and they went after Pablo, and the group was called Los Pepes. And they were, like you said, killing anybody associated with Pablo. They kidnap them, they tie them, they torture them, and then they would put the placard, Los Pepes.
Right.
That way Pablo knew it was them.
Getting close.
Yep. The head of Los Pepes, guy by the name of Don Berna.
Okay.
The problem, I know Don Berna. Don Berna knows me because he's always at our search block. Don Berna protected us a lot of times, not knowing he was the actual head. So people would see me with Don Berna. So obviously after Pablo gets killed, Don Berna becomes one of the biggest traffickers in Colombia.
He wasn't.
Wow. And
he wasn't righteous.
No. And he was the head. They'd go to the Cali cartel. Remember the turf wars?
Mm-hmm.
Cali hated Pablo.
Yes.
Pablo hated Cali. And Cali Cartel was financing Los Pepes, to do all the bombs.
They're bidding, right?
Torture people. And they were kidnapped. They even kidnapped a couple of teachers that were teaching his kids. I mean, nothing to do with it, but they were teachers. They kidnapped. And you know what? At the beginning, Colombians were like, wow, they love Los Pepes.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they started kidnapping, killing kids too, they killed an attorney. He had his 2 kids with him. They killed the 2 kids too. They started losing. Yeah. So Don Berna, again, I get accused. That was out there also killing people. Obviously, that did not happen.
Mm-hmm.
But he did protect us. And we find out afterwards, Don Berna was the actual head of Los Pepes. So Don Berna's serving 30 years right now in the United States. He got extradited, but he was, like I said, one of the biggest traffickers, very violent guy.
Mm-hmm.
Do I know him? Of course I know him.
Right.
He would protect us sometimes because we would meet the informants. We came up with an 800 number, in which paid dividends. I mean, 800 number, people were calling in, but they only wanted to talk to the gringos. Why? Because we're going to pay, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't want them to come into the search block, so we'd meet them at the bus station in Medellín. So if the cops were too busy, they couldn't protect us because remember, we're doing raids every day. So Don Berna would protect us. So anyway, but that's the accusation. And if you've seen the Narcos series, that's why my character is sort of portrayed as being friends with Don Berna, exchanging information.
Gotcha.
And that's where I get the accusation.
Yeah, it's just added drama.
Got to meet Pedro Pascal. We trained him actually on how to play the DA part. Just a great guy, great human being, good looking, but I think I'm a little better looking.
Yeah, he's the one that played your part?
Yeah, he played my part. But anyway,
he's not as chiseled.
The womanizing, all that sort of thing, well, I'm going to admit to it. It's all true. Yes, of course. Right. Yeah. Like I wish it would have been true. Believe me.
But your name is forever, right? Because of the Narcos series on Netflix, right? And the DEA Narcos is.
Yeah, they did 2 series.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's the chronology is accurate, but some of it is show business. Yeah, drama.
But people believe what they see, right? And I guess I should ask you that. Do you have any blowback from that, right? Because your name is forever going to be you and Steve Murphy are forever known with Pablo's name. Do you ever get people reaching out to you, connecting with you?
We get some hate mail. We get some hate mail. Pablo's a hero. Y'all should die. But the majority of the people are good. The majority is positive, and because of Narcos, Netflix, it helped us in our future because, now we do speaking tours where we actually, like right now, we tell the truth of what happened with Pablo Escobar. And you know what? I like doing it because I want the world, this is part of history. Pablo Escobar, like we said, was no Robin Hood.
No.
Robin Hood didn't kill the presidential candidate. No. Robin Hood did put a bomb on a commercial airline. Pablo Escobar was a thug, killed 50,000 people. But there's people out there that still love him. So we try to tell that story. And the bottom line of the story is also, the heroes were the Colombian National Police.
Yes.
Colonel Hugo Martinez, General Octavio Vargas Silva, they never gave up. They kept the search on. And you know what? As many things as they get accused, Colombia, hey, that's their glory. They're the ones who killed Pablo Escobar.
Yeah, and I think it's very important what you're doing and you and Steve Murphy are doing to continue to share the story because the people of Colombia still to this day hold him at a high regard, right? And they think of him that way.
It's a great country. And you know what? And I always say the only caveat, if you go to Medellín, you do not badmouth Pablo Escobar.
No, yeah.
Because there's still a lot of people that love him. The number 1 tourist attraction in Medellín, Pablo Escobar's gravesite.
Is it really?
People are flocking to his gravesite. Yeah. But no hero, Pablo Escobar deserved what he got. I wish we would have done it a lot earlier because a lot of innocent people would be alive.
Even his money is floating around out there still today.
There's still a lot of money.
People try to leave the country and come visit here, and they get stopped, and it's Pablo money that they have. They don't even know it.
Right. We just seized, I don't know, about 80 million not too long ago in a Switzerland bank account. Yeah. And it was just experimental money, just experimenting with the banking system. But
just 80 million?
Yeah, just 80 million.
Just 80.
Laying around. But you know what? I want to thank you all. I mean, thank you all for inviting me. I know we're running short of time, and visit the Mob Museum here in Las Vegas. It's great. And there's a lot of great artifacts. We have some artifacts from our Medellín Cartel days on loan here, stuff we brought back from the Pablo Escobar investigation. But you know what? Right now, and just real quick, what happened to Medellín Cartel? We took them down, and what happened? Cali Cartels took it over, right? Cali Cartels took it over, North Valley. The bottom line is, you know what? As long as there's people that can make money, they don't care who they kill, who they hurt. One of the things I hope that we get better at is education.
Yes, yeah,
starting
and I think
the
work that you've done and the work that you did back then, all of DEA and the government and the agents and from all around, even the locals, it just set a, I don't know, it's a role model for guys like us, right? In our generation that came after you guys, and it continues to go on. There's always going to be criminals to follow up and rise up.
There is, but Giovanni, y'all done a lot with us. Y'all did a lot of stuff.
It goes all the way back when you gave that family $4,000.
Exactly. It's disgraceful.
Just be a good human being.
We're good guys. We're good people. We're not bad people. We have some bad apples, of course. We've had them. Yep. Y'all know who some. I know them too. But the majority of law enforcement is good. We're out there, and you know what? Right now, there's a problem. I'm running away from it. Who's going to it? Our uniformed, our law enforcement, right?
I thought you were talking about Laredo again. He's still running away from her.
No, Laredo's in the past. He could go back to Laredo.
How many? You know what? I laugh now, but at that time I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
There were like 8 brothers who were.
You ain't worried about Pablo and the army over there. You got to get out of Laredo.
Exactly.
I wish we had more time, but thank you for coming.
Thank you guys. You all are heroes. You all have done a lot.
We've
known each other, and your reputation exceeds you. And please visit the Mob Museum, support them. It's history at its best.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening and watching us.
For behind-the-scenes photos, merchandise, and exclusive content, visit InsideTheLife.org. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts.